A degree used to mean power, status, security. Now it mostly means compliance. For decades, education was treated like a vault. Put time in, get value out. But vaults only work when the world moves slowly. Today, the world moves at machine speed, and credentials decay faster than ever. What people are starting to feel, but can't quite explain, is simple. Degrees aren't failing because people are lazy. They're failing because the system changed. To understand why degrees are losing power, you have to understand what power actually is. For most of modern history, power came from scarcity. Scarcity of knowledge, scarcity of credentials, scarcity of access. Universities controlled all three. If you wanted opportunity, you had to pass through their gates. That made degrees a form of leverage. Not because they guaranteed intelligence, but because they restricted entry. But leverage only works when it's exclusive. Once knowledge became abundant, once skills could be learned outside institutions, once access became digital, the asymmetry collapsed. Degrees didn't become useless. They became ordinary. And ordinary credentials don't command extraordinary outcomes. But the real damage isn't economic. It's psychological. Degrees train people to wait. For years of obedience. Years of delayed action. A promise that effort would be rewarded later. That mindset worked in a stable system. In a volatile one, it becomes a psychological barrier. People graduate trained to ask for permission, to follow paths, to seek validation from institutions. Meanwhile, the market rewards initiative, speed, and ownership. This creates a silent fracture. Two people with equal intelligence diverge. One waits to be chosen. The other positions themselves to be unavoidable. Degrees didn't teach positioning. They taught compliance. And compliance doesn't compound. Which brings us to the most misunderstood force reshaping wealth. Compounding no longer favors credentials. It favors leverage. Leverage of skills that scale. Leverage of distribution. Leverage of systems that work without you present. A degree is static. Leverage is dynamic. One stays frozen in time. The other adapts as the world shifts. Capital velocity exposes this difference brutally. When money moves faster, when opportunities appear and vanish quickly, those who can act immediately win. Those waiting for credentials fall behind. This is why high earners with elite degrees feel uneasy. They sense their advantage thinning. Not because they are less capable, but because their leverage is outdated. And yet, most people double down instead of adapting. They pursue more credentials, more certifications, more letters after their name, trying to protect an old form of power. But power doesn't care about effort. It responds to structure, and the structure has already changed. In the modern economy, value flows to those who solve problems visibly, publicly, continuously. The market no longer asks, "Where did you study?" It asks, "What can you do right now?" Degrees are delayed signals. The market wants real-time proof. This is why portfolios outperform resumes, why audiences outperform diplomas, why ownership outperforms employment. The new economy doesn't reward potential. It rewards demonstrated leverage. This is uncomfortable for people trained in linear paths, because linear paths feel safe. But safety is expensive. The safest route produces the smallest upside, and the slowest compounding, which is why degrees are losing power not suddenly, but quietly. They still work in regulated systems, medicine, law, engineering, but outside those narrow lanes. They no longer define outcomes. They define starting points. At best, the new elite understand this intuitively. They don't reject education. They unbundle it. They extract knowledge without buying identity, skills without obedience, learning without delay. They build leverage early, while others are still preparing. They accept asymmetric risk, because the downside is capped, and the upside compounds. This isn't rebellion. It's realism. The degree promised certainty, but certainty no longer exists. Only optionality does. And optionality belongs to those who can move, adapt, reposition. This is the final truth most people avoid. Degrees didn't lose power because they were bad. They lost power because they were slow. In a world governed by speed, speed is leverage. The future won't belong to the most credentialed or the most obedient. It will belong to those who learn how to learn, how to deploy capital, how to compound attention, skill, and ownership. Education isn't dead, but the era of education as authority is over. The question isn't whether you have a degree, it's whether you have leverage, because the world no longer rewards preparation alone. It rewards positioning, and positioning can't be framed on a wall. It has to be built. If this video added value, consider subscribing for more content on wealth, mindset, and long-term thinking. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.